Okay, welcome everybody to the Google Hangout. We're live, Amy.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here with you today, Catherine. Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So let me just make sure all of our technology is working the way it's supposed to be and that people who want to watch are able to see us. Okay, fantastic, and they are. So hi, everybody. My name is Catherine, and I'm from the Natural Mom Hub and Denver Natural Mom. And I'm joined today by Amy Arthur Packer, who is my personal coach and just a wonderful resource for any working mom. So Amy, would you just introduce yourself and tell us how you got into this?
Sure, I'd love to. So I've known Catherine for about a year now, and we've had so much fun working together, and I'm excited to be here today with all of you. And I have had my own consulting practice up here in the Vail Valley for the past almost 11 years now. And I've focused in on leadership and team development and worked with lots of groups, and then also done coaching for various leaders around the Valley. And I am now working even more towards working with women leaders and also working moms, because I feel like I'm a working mom and I understand how it is to try to build your career and juggle your family and take care of yourself and all the many things that we have to do to keep everything going. And I just want to be able to support women in that. And so that is really my niche that I have created and that I've been working with over the last several years. And I really enjoy it. And so I'm excited to get to know all of you.
Yeah, that's great, Amy. So today we're going to be talking about the 3 mistakes that working mothers make. And how to avoid them. And I know that you would love us to emphasize that, how to avoid making mistakes, because we don't want to get too fixated on the things that can go wrong. And I think everyone who's with us can relate that, sometimes it's just a juggling act, right?
That is for sure. And, that whole idea of mistakes is really just something to get people's attention. But what I want people to know is that if you are a working mom, you are already doing a great job and you're amazing, because we juggle more things in one day than most people do in a week, and have many talents and skills around how to do these things. And so I just like to give you a few tips and tools that I find are helpful for myself, and then also helpful for my clients that I work with on a daily basis. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Great. And maybe we should back up even one step further, because I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is relevant for any parent. And, even the skills that we're talking about, work that might be outside of the home or for an employer or for yourself, like there's so many different configurations. And I know tons of moms who are doing a side job during nap time. And so maybe we could broaden this a little bit and what is your perspective on that, Amy? I know your clients come in all different configurations of working and parenting and the combinations thereof. So,
yes, that is a great point. So working mom could be defined in many different ways. It could be, like you said, somebody who is a mom most of the time and is trying to get a business off the ground. It could even just be a mom that stays at home because it's a big job just to have kids full time. And I have so much respect for women who are able to do that. And they may have an idea in their head about something that they'd like to eventually do, but they just haven't quite gotten to it. So these types of tips that we'll talk about today are definitely relevant to that. It could be somebody who is an entrepreneur and works, several days a week in their office, either at home or outside of the office, but has daycare for their kids and is building a business or has a business that's already well established. And it could be somebody who's a leader in an organization, or working as an independent contributor in an organization, and is juggling that, being away from home the majority of the time, and then working with kids and family and all the different things that have to be put together as part of that puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, good. So now that we've said that, we definitely mean this to be inclusive for, all of us are working at the mom thing for sure. So now that we've kind of let everybody know that we hope you can learn something from this regardless of your individual kind of setup. Amy, do you want to jump in and tell us what the biggest mistake is that you see?
Sure. When I put this article that I wrote together, I tried to think of what are some of those main things that I know that I can have a struggle with, that I see my clients struggling with, that I see my friends struggling with. And I think that the number one thing that we all struggle with is that sense of guilt. And it can show up in many forms. But as women, we tend to be harder on ourselves than anybody else would typically be on us. And I just actually had a call this morning with one of my clients, and we were talking about, how can you treat yourself a little bit more like somebody else you would expect somebody else to treat you, or you would want to treat somebody yourself, because I think we're harder on ourselves than anybody else would ever expect us to be. And the guilt thing can get in our way. And what it is really one of those emotions that is not productive, and it really steals our joy in the present moment. And so if we can figure out some ways to be a little bit more gentle and kinder with ourselves, and then also some ways to manage when we see that guilt coming up, then that is a huge piece that can help us just with the general mindset around being able to handle all the different things that we do in a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is such a sensitive, I guess, topic for me because of, launching my business this year and also being pregnant. Amy, that this has been kind of a thing where I'm like, I'm not honoring this pregnancy and my connection with my baby. And I actually wrote a post about how different this pregnancy is than my first, where I really had the freedom to tune in a little bit more and send messages to the baby. And so I really have tried to just release myself from that, because I think, on the outside, people would say, well, you guys are a great family and your baby's just joining this family and whatever. So I think it's really interesting what you say about, well, if this was a mom down the street, how would you talk to her? What are the things, how would you encourage her and recognize how hard she's working, and instead of kind of beating ourselves up that we're not attaining this totally, maybe not even based in reality, expectation of ourselves.
Exactly. Yes. So, really when it comes to guilt, it's thoughts and feelings that we have. And that is what it is, that when you'll notice that you're feeling guilty or you're thinking guilty thoughts, that's what happens first. And so if we can build some awareness around when we start to feel that way, then it makes it easier to be able to change that. And so when you notice that you are feeling guilty over anything, it could be that you dropped your daughter off at daycare this morning and she was crying and saying, "Mommy, I don't want to go to school today. I just want to be with you," which happens to me nearly every day with my 4-year-old, although she's getting better. Or it could be something that I was just talking with a client about yesterday, who is a leader in her organization. She's actually the leader of her organization, and she had to change her daughter's preschool situation, and it ends earlier in the day than her old one did. And so she has to leave work a little bit earlier than she's used to, and she feels guilty walking out of work early, and she can't get past it. And so, just taking a minute to just pause and take a deep breath and realize that you're feeling that way. And then ask yourself, how can I choose to feel differently about this? What's good about this? And remembering to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, I think those are great examples. The guilt goes in many directions. Maybe it's like towards your family or towards your job, that maybe you're not giving what you feel like you should be. And giving yourself some grace. That's kind of the word that I would use to, right? So what are your best tips for avoiding this guilt mistake? Awareness, you said, is our first thing. Just noticing when those feelings kind of arise. And for me, they're panicky usually.
Right. And then I say awareness first, because when you're aware of it, then at least you know what's happening so that you can change it. And then secondly, just in that moment, being, like you said, giving yourself some grace and some kindness and some compassion, and reminding yourself of all the things that you are doing and all the things that you're accomplishing in any given time. Sometimes it's just kind of a mindset shift that you need, and you just have to be aware of it first to be able to make that mindset shift. And then my other tip is that sometimes we feel guilty about things that aren't even necessary to feel guilty about. I mean, that's the funny thing. I find sometimes that we're harder on ourselves than we need to be about the time that we're spending away from our kids if we're working, or about not bringing homemade cupcakes to our son's Valentine party at school, and instead picking them up at City Market 10 minutes before you have to be there. Finding out more about what your family's expectations are of you, and what your work expectations are of you, and whether that's you or your own boss, and getting realistic around what can you actually accomplish in the time that you allow yourself for work, or whether you work for someone and you need to make sure that you understand those expectations. Just being really clear about those things, and then trying to focus in on what's really important versus feeling guilty about everything that's not exactly how you want it to be, because the reality is that everything is never going to be exactly how you want it to be, because you've just got too many things going on. So where can you adjust, and then put your focus in on what's really important versus just feeling guilty all the time?
Okay, I'm going to share one more personal.
Great.
Amy, can you turn on your speaker a little bit, because I think that's might be why we're getting a little feedback. Is that okay? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I was going to say, we had that big snow day in Denver a couple weeks ago, and it was the first day that our nanny was not able to make it to our house. And I was like, well, that's fine. It's a snow day, and every home in the city was dealing with this, with parents who anticipated getting things done that day, and then their schedule was totally blown. And so I'm looking at this to-do list of everything I had set out to do on that Wednesday, and instead I'm building a snowman, and we're in and out of the snow 5 times, and putting our snow pants back on. And I had to just make a choice around noon that day that this was going to be a family day, and we were just going to make some memories on the snow day, and whatever I got done was exactly what I was supposed to get done on that day. And it was totally out of my control, but it had to be a conscious choice, or else I would have just been kind of resentful or distracted or worried about, things that were supposed to be accomplished in that day. So I know that that's kind of a weird example, but I just think, we have to just release ourselves from, okay, what realistically was I going to be able to accomplish that day? I had a 1-hour nap to really, really get things done. And, just to find some peace with that.
I think that's a great example. And what you said was, by about noon, you realized that it was out of your control. And oftentimes there are situations when we are working parents that are out of our control. And, if you had gotten to the end of that day and just felt guilty all day, and frustrated and annoyed, and all those other emotions that were coming up for you, then you would have been really sad, because you would have felt like, wow, I could have been in the present moment with my daughter, and like you said, made some memories today. So congratulations for turning that around. That's not an easy thing to do. Especially when
I'm just glad it was only one day. And, we have another blizzard coming. So, hopefully I don't have to
the weekend.
That all weekend.
I know. I'm looking out my window right now, and it's snowing. So it's probably headed.
Oh, it is? Okay, well, it's supposed to start for you guys first. So I guess I'll just see how it's going by the end of our call today. All right. Are we ready to move on to our second mistake?
Let's move on to the next one. Yeah. So the second one is resisting or feeling guilty about asking for help. And the reality is that as a working mom or a working parent, you can do it all, but do you really want to do it all? Is that where you want to be focusing to the point where you're just frazzled and overwhelmed and frustrated and just feel like you can't quite get a handle on things all the time? And so one of the best ways that I know to help with that is to kind kind of get yourself out of that perfectionism trap and feeling like it's a sign of weakness because you're asking for help, because I think sometimes we beat ourselves up about needing help, and just realize that everybody needs it. And so where can you find help in certain scenarios that are continually putting a wrench in your weekly schedule? And some examples of that might be communicating with your spouse about how things are running, and looking at your daily routine, and what are those craziest times a day in the morning when everybody's getting up and you're trying to get them out the door, or at night after everybody gets home and you're trying to, depending on what age your kids are, you're either trying to get them settled in for their bath and their book and get them to bed, or you have homework to do, or you have sports practices to get to. And so how can you communicate with your spouse about ways to make it work the best? And then if your kids are old enough, how do you communicate with them about helping you around the house? Sometimes I think as moms, we get into a trap of, I'll just do it myself because I know it'll get done. Or if I ask the kids to do it, then it's not going to get done the way that I want it to, and I'm going to end up redoing it anyway. And sometimes we have to lower our standards around that. When I asked my son to unload the dishwasher, and he's only 8, and I see him, flinging around the kitchen with these glass bowls that we got for our wedding and things like that, it can be a little disconcerting, but he tends to actually, pull it off, and then the dishwasher is unloaded and I didn't have to do it. So sometimes we have to just lower expectations a little bit around when we ask for help and it's with our kids, or we have to up our expectations of our spouse and say, hey, I can't do it all. And so, what are a couple of things that you could take off my plate to make it all work together?
Yeah, I think those are good examples. Amy, did you mess with your speaker volume again? Sorry.
No, I didn't. Do you want me to do something with it?
Well, you hear an echo, or is it? Okay. But I was going to say with your examples of asking for help, I think it's easy to ask our partner or kids. And actually, my daughter is really into washing dishes because she saw a video that our friends had posted of their 2-year-old washing dishes. So now so maybe we can make this viral. Moms, if you want a copy of a video of 2-year-olds doing dishes, show it to your 2-year-old. And it'll be the new cool thing, and we'll start a big trend of peer pressure to wash dishes. But it's a little hard living in a desert because I see how much water it takes for her to wash a dish compared to me. But like you said, you can't control everything. So just take what you can and, take the help for what it is. But obviously there are other people in our lives that we need to rely on. And some of us are in a situation where maybe our spouse or partner's traveling for work during the week, or, we're having to carry a lot more of those kind of household and family responsibilities. So, do you ever see in your clients like reluctance to hire people? If you're in a position to kind of get some help, I know for us, we have a super energetic dog. And so we send him on an outdoor adventure once a week on Mondays so that he's tired until about Wednesday. But it helps to reduce like how much time and energy it takes to really, love our dog through being outside with him. And, Mondays are our busiest work day. We're starting the week, and that's just kind of something. It's $30, which is kind of a lot if you think about it every week. But for us, it's just like, this is worth it for him to go run off energy. And he loves it. When he sees his ride coming, he sits in the window and watches for his ride. So in our house, that's just one example, but a place where we really needed some help, because giving him all the exercise he really needs is a huge time commitment for, the humans in our house.
Right. Yes. I think that that oftentimes there is a reluctance. And one of the places that I see that too is with having somebody to help you with cleaning your house. And for me, I would rather give up all going out to dinner for an entire month than give up my cleaning lady. And I just only have her, once every 2 weeks. So it's not like she comes every week or every day. But that is a huge gift that I give to myself, that at least every 2 weeks, I know that I start with a clean house and then I can kind of keep it up from there. And so I think if you're in a position where you can figure out a way to get creative with your budget, that is a huge piece that you can do that can help you. If you're not in a position to do that, and that sounds like crazy to try to hire somebody to help you with cleaning your house, another way that you can do that is just to lower your standards a little bit. I think sometimes we get all caught up in the idea that everything has to be perfect in our houses all the time, and the reality is when you have kids, it never will be. And so letting go of that a little bit and just being willing to settle on good enough is sometimes a way to get yourself in a better place around that.
Yeah, one thing I just want to add is I think a lot of this is like our own personal work about saying what we want and need. Because we have a babysitter that was coming, and she would leave at 5 o'clock, and I would walk into our daughter's room and the toys would still be everywhere. And so I had a conversation with her and I said, I really want Lillian to learn to clean up her things. And so at 4:45, I would love for you guys together to start picking up her room. And, even in the bathtub, like if you want to get out and you're done with bath, you need to pick up all your bath toys and put them where they, because I think setting that expectation, and instead for a few weeks I was like, the babysitter just left and now I have to clean up after what they did all day, and then finally I was like, this is silly. I think I should just tell her like, hey, and I kind of put it on our daughter. I'm like, I really want her to learn how to do this. But that was just, something for me that I was like, okay, at the end of the day, when you guys leave, I want her room to look nice and to kind of be put away. And so we can enter our evening time and our evening routine without too much still tidying and everything from the day. So, again, I'm giving you guys so much information about my own family and house, but yeah, I think, changing your standards, and one thing we haven't really discussed, but sharing the load with like true friends and moms and people that you think, if your kids are getting all dropped off at the same time and they live down the street from you, let's do a carpool. Let's see if we can work this out or help each other out. And I know we tend to be there for each other in community when there's a big change, like a new baby comes, but there's a lot of day-to-day needs, that people have. And personally, I put on Facebook yesterday, we had some testing with the baby and it was good news, but I got all these texts from people that were like, do you need me to come walk the dog? And I was like, can I put that in the bank? Because I think that there will definitely be moments where I may need my neighbors to come and help me in that way. But I think it takes kind of a shift in us to say yes to that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because sometimes it's hard for us to receive, or to take from others. And so I think that, in my life personally, I find that it takes a village. And, I think it was Hillary Clinton who originally came up with that saying, but it really does. And my friends and I say that to each other all the time. And I'm at a point now where I've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. And so, they're going here and there and, birthday parties and karate practice and ballet practice and preschool and this and that. And I have several friends whose kids are on that same schedule. And so we help each other, and we, we'll text each other at the beginning of the week and say, okay, so, this is what I got going on and here's what I got going on. And we figure out a way to help each other with carpooling. And, it makes a huge difference. It's a great way to cut your to-do list in half, because you can buy yourself a lot of time by helping yourself and helping others, right? So it's not like it's a one-way street. You're helping somebody else too, and you figure out a way to make it all work together. So I think that's a huge thing that if you're not already doing it, find a way to do more of that.
Great. And I just want to invite, because I know we have some people that are watching us live, which I'm very excited that you're getting all these gems. But if you do have questions and things that you want us to kind of delve into or go in further, for Amy, of course, I don't know, what am I going to add to this? But yes, for our expert today, please feel free to post them. I've been checking the page with the Facebook comments. So let us know if there's anything we can be addressing before our time with Amy is up. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Amy, and if you think it's time to go over our third mistake, or are we still going on tips? Tell me.
Let's go. I'm looking right here at my article, and I wanted to make sure that I addressed these things. So a couple of things to pick your craziest time of day, and what's one thing that you're currently doing that somebody else could do. So, the idea here is not to completely overhaul your entire routine, because that just sounds totally overwhelming to me, and I'm sure it does to you as well. But what's something you could start small? Just pick one thing that that would be something that you get annoyed over every day, and your kids could be doing, or your husband could be doing, and ask for help. Ask them to help you with that. And then at work, I think it's important to realize that we can delegate. We can outsource, we can share responsibility with people, and to look at it from the perspective of, I want to be in a place where I'm operating from my strengths and from what I do best. And so if there are certain things that I might be able to delegate to my team, if I'm a leader in an organization, or if I'm an entrepreneur, maybe it's hiring a virtual assistant for a couple hours a week to help you with some administrative details that are not your strength, and things that end up taking up a lot more of your time than you need them to. So just really always looking for those opportunities to ask for help, and to make it where your life is just that little bit easier because you took something off of your plate.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you hear from your clients, or in your own experience, what's your craziest time of day? I mean, you're kind of in a different phase of motherhood with older kids. So I imagine that, like you said, like getting out the door or something.
I would say that it used to be morning, but I think that we've gotten that pretty well dialed in. And so it feels like, and my husband is super helpful. So I have to say that, he's generally around and helping pack lunch boxes and those kinds of things. But I would say in our household, it's definitely the end of the day, and mainly because kids are tired and hungry. And so, some evenings go better than others, but you've got to, and they also have, activities after school and homework and those kinds of things. So if you haven't gotten into that stage yet,
get ready.
Get ready.
You're telling us to.
A lot to juggle. But they're also more self-sufficient. So you can also, have them be doing things on their own. But I would say the craziest time of day is just getting dinner on the table, wrapping up what I'm doing with work, because I work from home, and finding a way to just be really present with my family. And I think there was somebody who asked a question around that for the Google Hangout, correct?
Yeah, can I share that question, and we'll go from here?
Yeah,
so let me just pull that up. Let's see. So Rachel asked, I would love to hear tips for how to truly turn off work in the evenings. It seems like I'm always coming back to work after the little one goes to bed, because I can't seem to neatly wrap up my day before I go pick him up. I work from home, so that makes it much harder to shut off. Rachel, I feel you, the working from home thing, and it's always there. So it is a little bit harder to wrap up. And maybe, Amy, you can speak to this, but like one thing I like to do is I kind of go back to my to-do list, and I really am trying to have my next day list ready. And that way I feel like even if I didn't get everything done for that current day, I have a game plan for the next day. And, sometimes it's still like, before I go to bed tonight, this one thing still has to happen. But trying to really limit that and put some scope around it so it's not just open-ended working at night. Okay, so now what do you think, Amy?
I think that's a great tip. And I think along with that, when you're making your to-do list in the beginning of the day, ask yourself the question of, what are the top 3 things that I need to make sure to accomplish today by the time, you know, I need to wrap up my work to go and pick up my child. And those are your priorities for the day. And then check in with yourself throughout the day and make sure that you're actually focused in on your priorities. And you know, some days you'll get them all 3 done. Maybe some days you'll only get 2 done. But being able to be really focused in on what's most important and not getting distracted by social media or surfing the web or, you know, when you're at home, I think working from home is a challenge. I have a home office as well. You know, I try to really be good about not unloading the dishwasher in the middle of the day or doing laundry or that kind of thing. I just try to put my blinders on and walk past the kitchen or the laundry room and just say, okay, I'll deal with that later. So compartmentalizing your time. So when you're working and you're being present with your work and you're focused and you're getting things done. And when you're with your family, you're with your family, and really trying to, unless it's something super pressing that absolutely has to be done and you weren't able to get to it, really trying to manage yourself around, you know what, this is my downtime, because research shows that you're more productive when you've had downtime. That, you know, if you work, you can work, I mean, you could work 24/7 when you're an entrepreneur, but you've got to have that time to just regroup, relax, and instead of being tempted to go and turn your computer back on after your kids are in bed, maybe try doing some sort of a meditation or something that's gonna fill you up and get you productive and focused for the next day.
That's great. Is this a good time to talk about Pomodoro?
Sure, yeah. I love that technique.
And productivity. So I'm sure some of you guys, if this is really, for me, I'm always looking for the right tool, and I put a lot of pressure on this tool that's going to make the world of difference in my work. So I can tell you guys, I've tried a bunch of different approaches to even how I write my to-do list. And I interviewed a personal organizer a few months ago, and she gave me a way of these are my must-dos. These would be great if I get to. And then this is my brain dump list of everything that I think could be done or would be great. And that's where I'm call a carpenter to change the door in our house, that has no deadline and there's no sense of urgency, but it's just I need to write this down to get it out of my head. So anyway, to back up to, is it Pomodoro? Am I saying that right? Is that the right one? So I actually was introduced to this in the fitness world, where you do an exercise for 20 seconds and then you take a 10-second break and you do nothing, and then you kind of let yourself recover, but then you're able to go at the next 20-second round with all this new energy and intensity because you've just rested for 10 whole seconds. So then I heard that people, that this principle doesn't just work for exercise, it works for anything that we're trying to do, to spend so instead of seconds, minutes, but 20 minutes working and then a 10-minute break. So I kind of have messed with this a little bit, and it's worked the best for me when I actually spend my 10-minute break doing something, getting up from my desk. So for me, this is where I change the laundry, because I have a timer going. So on my desk, and the app that I use for Mac is called Howler Timer, and it's literally a wolf that howls. So when I go to my co-working space and it's oh, and then I'm oops, turn that off. People are looking at me with my wolf howling. And in my home office, my dog is why is this dog wolf howling at me every 10 or 20 minutes? But moving in that 10-minute break and taking a break from the computer, because sometimes I'm I'm going to use my 10 minutes to look at Facebook, but I don't have the renewed sense of purpose when I come back to my desk, because I've still been sitting at my computer for an hour straight. So that's how I've been using Pomodoro: 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, and I use a timer to keep me kind of focused on that. It's hard, of course, when you're kind of in the middle of a thought and it goes off and your time's up, but so usually I'll, sometimes you just have to have some flexibility with it, but that's been kind of keeping me more focused throughout my day so that I can hit all those, 3 most important things for me for the day.
And is that the key with that too is just focusing in on one task during that 20 minutes, right? So you don't flip back and forth and try to multitask and check email while you're doing it, or Facebook, or, whatever. You just completely zero in on that one task during that 20, or I think I've heard of it being 25 and 5 too, but there may be just different ways to do it. I kind of like the 20 and 10, because that is nice to have that little 10-minute break in between.
Well, I'm also pregnant, so by the time I refill my water, go to the bathroom, I need those extra 5 minutes, Amy, to to move around a little bit. And yeah, of course. And sometimes I have a project where it takes several 20-minute intervals to get through it, but it's just kind of like chunking it up and really, really working through it. And sometimes I'll do 20 minutes of just email. So that way I know I'm not going to spend forever in my inbox, because that could happen. And I got to tell you right now, I'm like 3 days behind on my email. So if you're watching this and I owe you an email, I apologize. But, because you kind of have to skim for like, okay, this is super pressing and I was waiting to hear back from this person. So I'm going to choose this email, even though everything before it and everything after it is still unread and untouched. But email, they say, is a huge waste of our time, especially like in a corporate setting where as soon as your Outlook kind of dings, you stop everything else to go check to see what that person wants. And you're really not working on your own agenda. You're working on other people's agenda at that point.
Right. That's a great point. And there's another thing to think about too, is that time expands to the amount that we allow, or a task will expand to the amount of time that we allow for it. So if we only give ourselves 20 minutes to do email, then we will get to those top priority emails in that 20 minutes. And then probably some of the other stuff that was like a newsletter or something that's like a nice to read, but not a necessary to read, that can wait till later, you don't end up spending time on. And it's a great way to keep yourself really, really focused.
Great. So do you have any more tips for, I guess, well, this one was asking for help, and now we've kind of gone down this path, but I think we're always looking to hear what other people are doing and what works for them. And
definitely.
So anyway, get us back on track.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're talking about here is not only asking for help, but creating more time for ourselves by asking for help. And so, and the other part of it is that that might be a good thing to mention right now, is that next week I'm doing a free training on how to get a grip on your time. And so it's very much at the forefront of my mind, all of these tips. So that's where some of those came from. And we'll send you the information on that, because we'd love for you to join us for that as well. So the third one is one of my favorites, because I think it's so important, and it's one of those things that we really have to make an effort to make happen. And that's the mistake is neglecting to schedule me time. And as working moms, we have a tendency to put others' needs above our own. And oftentimes we end up at the bottom of the list. And we have to be really careful about that, because it's just like they say, on the plane with the oxygen mask, go ahead and put yours on first and then put on your child's. We have to remember that for ourselves here. You can't give from an empty vase or cup. You have to fill yourself up first before you can give to others. And if you don't, then you come from a depleted place, and you end up risking burnout and overall just exhaustion and all kinds of things, places that you don't want to go because you just forget to take care of yourself and address your own needs.
Oh gosh, Amy, I feel like this has been like, oh, you're coaching me on these things, and then I get to talk about them too. But yeah, I think, and self-care there's so many different ways we take care of ourselves, right? And this week I actually, my alarm went off to go work out at 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, I think I'm going to take care of myself by just sleeping. So, because at the same time, it was still time I had set aside for myself, but in that moment, the extra hour of sleep was way more important than I guess I'm not going to get a workout in today. But, I think that's just sometimes weighing and balancing what's going to restore me and refuel me for my day more than something else. So
I think that's a great point. Definitely. And paying attention to your intuition around what your body needs, or what your mind needs, or what you need emotionally, because there's different ways to take care of ourselves. It can be physically, it can be mentally, it can be emotionally, it can be spiritually. A lot of times when we're really busy, we tend to neglect that part of our lives. And so there are ways to incorporate that in and try to, have a morning ritual where you read an affirmation or some sort of a devotional to get yourself kind of in the right mindset for the day, or do a little yoga or some meditation. There are lots of different ways that we can take care of ourselves. And I actually have a few tips about some ways to actually make it happen in your life when you're very busy. Would you like me to go into those?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first one is that our lives really revolve around our calendars. And so, if something is not in our calendar, a lot of times there's a good chance it's really not going to happen. And so, along with those time management tips that we were talking about earlier, it's important to schedule in your self-care. And even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes a day, you've got to have some breaks. And I've worked with clients just recently, a woman who is an executive in her company, and she was just packing her calendar completely full to the point where she barely even had time to use the restroom. And she was so good at managing her time and being really productive, but she wasn't necessarily always remembering to take care of herself. And so we talked about, what can you do to incorporate a few brain breaks into the day? And so she tried it, and she came back a couple weeks later when we talked again, and felt like, wow, I just took 10 minutes and I walked outside and I got some sunshine on my face, and it completely renewed my attitude. I was more productive when I got back, more focused. And so she really saw the benefit of it. And so, and she actually did literally schedule it into her calendar to make sure that it happened.
So but nobody could book her for something else. It sounds like
exactly.
And other people have privilege on our calendar.
Yeah. That's the problem with shared calendars, for sure. So it might be a hike, it might be a yoga class, it might be lunch with a friend. It's whatever fills you up. And what are really those non-negotiables that you need to have as part of your life in order to be the mom that you want to be, the wife that you want to be, the employee that you want to be, the business owner that you want to be, the friend that you want to be. You've got to find ways to fit in taking care of yourself. But it doesn't have to be an hour yoga class. It can be 10-minute breathing and stretch break.
So I'm gonna jump in and just tell everybody that when we were getting ready for the hangout, I realized a half an hour before we were going to start that I hadn't had lunch. I had no plan for lunch, no food in my house. And so I was like, well, gotta eat. So sometimes self-care is that basic. And I know when we have brand new babies, that's one of the first things that we forget. We get into their feeding cycle and we forget about feeding and nourishing ourselves. But, so I like that you're including so many aspects of this, Amy, because it really is, there's a whole gamut there, and it's not just exercise or meditation. It's just meeting your basic needs, and I think our needs list sometimes is longer than we're ready or open about acknowledging that all of those things are just as necessary as the food and as the sleep.
Right, it definitely is, and then you want to just try to make a commitment to do something for yourself every day, even if it's just 5 minutes, just to give yourself something that's going to fill you up. And like we said, it can be simple things. And I've got a free gift that I'd be happy to share with people. And it's a cheat sheet that says simple self-care strategies in 5 minutes or less. And these are some things that you can do that are quick, but they rejuvenate you and make you where you can be focused and be that person that you want to be for your job or for your life. And so the first one is just remember to breathe. And that might sound silly, but when we're in that kind of overwhelmed, stressed mode, we have a tendency to breathe, out of our chests. And if we can just take a little time to focus in on, planting our feet firmly on the ground and taking some of those deep belly breaths that really fill us up, that is a way to reset the way that we're thinking and and to calm our nervous system so we get out of that flight or fight mode and we can make better decisions and better choices. So that's one. Another one is just take a stretch break, stand up from your desk or in the kitchen, when you're running around trying to get dinner ready, and just remember to stretch. And especially if you spend time on a computer, that one's really important to stop and do during the day. Don't underestimate the value of getting outside and getting some fresh air and some sunshine. Sometimes I'll be sitting at my desk and working on a project, and I will just start to feel my energy starting to dip. And if I just walk outside and take a walk around the block for even 5 minutes, I'm amazed at how much more renewed and refreshed I feel and how much more productive I can be when I get back. And the other thing is that sometimes some of my best ideas come during that 5-minute break. So, don't feel like you're not working because you may be trying too hard at your computer. And when you get away from your computer and just allow your brain to just rejuvenate, sometimes your best ideas will come. Along with those, number 4 is moving your body. So of course, taking a walk or a hike, finding ways to fit that into your calendar. And then you can even do, there's lots in the media and on Facebook out there right now about meditating and the benefits of that. And I think people sometimes, either really take to it or they get super overwhelmed by it and think, oh my gosh, I could never even try to do that because I can't shut my brain off for more than 2 seconds. And I would encourage you just to try it for a minute. Or 2 or 3, and see what results you get, because you'll end up with coming from more of a place of grounded and peacefulness.
Yeah, I think those are great, and the fact that they can be short. And one thing I've started doing with the stretching, so during bath time, and I'm already sitting on the floor next to the bathtub, I stretch.
That's a great idea.
Because I'm monitoring all of that going on, but it's just a nice time when I can still converse with my daughter and talk to her about her day. But she's like, "Mommy, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm stretching, stretching my legs and stretching my arms." And so that's been just like a way that I sneak it in. I'm trying to think what else, but when I'm with her, choosing an outdoor play date, choosing to take her on my walks, or incorporating that sunshine piece. And of course, I've mentioned the weather like 5 times today, but kind of knowing what's coming, I'm like, we got to make sure today we're going to do something outside before the rain starts and before the snow starts, and who knows how many days it'll be that we'll be trapped inside. But that's really cool. And the other thing that the adult coloring books that have gotten really big.
Yeah.
Some like great stories about moms that are just, they do their own coloring, like their kids are doing art and they're doing their own kind of thing to relax. And so I've seen some really fun like adult coloring books, and it is kind of a nice way to just turn off. Like I think that's a big challenge, just finding times when you don't have to be so on and thinking about the next thing and what's the next meeting I have or the next conference call, and do I have all my stuff ready for it? Because sometimes that's how I feel. Like today I looked at my calendar, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure these 4 things are ready so I can have these conversations that are already on my calendar. So
right.
We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants sometimes.
Definitely. I love those examples of being able to do things where you're taking care of yourself, but also with your children, because sometimes it's not realistic to be able to go off and do something all on your own. But if you just have it kind of in the forefront of your mind, then you can incorporate some of those things, and you're spending time with them and you're also taking care of yourself at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So this is, and I want to tell one funny story, and then I will let you wrap up. But, we talk about moms and just the way we put others before ourselves, and my husband gives me a hard time because I tend to throw him under the bus, like at parties and stuff. And I'll tell these stories where he, but he got back from a big ski trip, and it was some intense skiing, I could tell. And he was really sore and beat up. And I'll tell you what, he had no problem scheduling himself a massage on the very first day he was back in town after being away for 5 days. And it's just like, that's the difference, I think, between, I would tell myself, oh, massage would be great, or I would love that, and maybe a couple days out once I get back into my rhythm and my family. But no, like he had no issue. Day 1, he's back, he's sore. Let me call and see if I can get in, and took care of himself. And in a lot of ways, I am jealous of that because he had no guilt over it. But he was doing what he knew he needed, in that moment. So that totally occurred to me when we talk about how sometimes we put ourselves last on the list. And, maybe we have something to learn from the people who aren't like that.
Definitely. That's a great example. And I think you're right. I think men tend to not overthink things like we do sometimes.
Yeah, they just do what they need to do. And so I guess we need to all be encouraged to do what we need to do, because it is a lot that's kind of weighing on us. And, we have to be at our best. I know that you're going to wrap up with something like this, but, for us to be at our best, we've got to be putting ourselves into the equation of everything else.
Yes, exactly. So if we're ready to wrap up, then I'll just kind of go over those the 3 points that we covered today, so everybody can remember. And if there's any questions, we still have a few more minutes, so feel free to type those in. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has that have come up, or feel free also to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to answer emails about questions as well, and you can find that on my website, which is amyapacker.com. So the first was that we talked about, the first mistake was letting guilt get the best of us. And so we talked about how do we try to be aware of it in the moment and then make a choice to let some things go and not feel guilty over everything, because it's really a useless emotion and something that doesn't help us but hurts us. The second one was, the second mistake was resisting asking for help. And so we talked about many different areas of your life where you can ask for help or think of ways to get help so that you can start to buy back a little time for yourself and help others as well in the process, and make it something that works for everyone. And then number 3, the third mistake was neglecting to schedule me time. And we talked about the fact that we tend to put our needs or last on the list, and that we have to make sure to fill ourselves up before we can take care of others' needs. And so how do we do that? It doesn't have to always be, an hour-long yoga class. It can be a 5-minute little breathing break, and whatever it is that rejuvenates you and helps you to get through the rest of your day and your week. And so like you said, it really is about remembering to look at the big picture and think of all the things that are going well in your life, and trying not to focus in on that and getting in that perfectionism trap of what's not going well, or beating ourselves up or feeling guilty about things, but just realizing that we're all doing the very best that we can, and that you just got to take it one day at a time, and some days are going to be better than others, and there are things that you can do to help with that, and strategies that will really make it where life is more manageable and not quite so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Amy, I definitely want to encourage everybody, and you know what, let's just email them the self-care cheat sheet. So, because we talked through those, but it's great to have something that you could print to keep at your desk, or just some reminders. So we'll send that out to everybody who did sign up. And if you didn't give us your email address, you can still do that at naturalmomhub.com/hangout. And if you give us your email address, we'll send you the self-care cheat sheet, and also an invitation for Amy's upcoming webinar, which is next Tuesday. Amy, do you want to briefly talk about just that? I know we sort of teased some of the tips that you'll have on that one, but sure. Tell us a little bit about what's coming on Tuesday.
Okay, so I'm doing a free training next week, and it's at noon on Tuesday. And if you're not able to join live, it's just like this one. We will email you the recording if you sign up. And so I'll send you all, if I have your email address, I'll send you all both the self-care cheat sheet and then information about how to sign up for the webinar. But what it's called is How Savvy Working Moms Get a Grip on Their Time in 3 Simple Steps. And so I'm going to share with you some of my best tips and tools for how do you get some more control over your time so that you can focus in on what matters most, and really buy back some time and energy for yourself by doing a few things differently. And we did talk about some of the things today, but there's many more. So please join us, because it's just really something that I see over and over again with my clients and with myself. And I think that the more that we can have some of this knowledge and these tools, the easier we can make our lives.
Yeah. And Amy, I know that the way we started working together was because you took the time to just get to know me, and we had a first kind of phone call. So would love for you to offer that to these participants today. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I would love to talk to any of you who are interested in checking out one-on-one coaching and seeing how that might be something that could be helpful to you in your life. And so what I offer is a 30-minute strategy session, which is complimentary. And this is how Catherine and I first got acquainted, was that she scheduled one of these with me. And I'll just talk to you a little bit about, what's your current situation and where is it that you'd like to be going, and what are some ways that coaching might be able to help you to get there. And so feel free to go ahead and sign up for one of those if you're interested. I'd be more than happy to talk with you. I do have a page on my website. And again, my website is Amy A. Packer. So it's AMYAPACKER.com, and then /chat. And that's where you can find the information about how to apply for one of those complimentary strategy sessions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with all of our Natural Mom Hub moms today. And, just having talked to you for the last hour, I feel just kind of reassured with everything we try to take on as working moms, and ready to kind of attack the afternoon. Maybe we should have done this on a Monday so I'd be rejuvenated for the whole week. But either way, I'm ready to wrap up my week really strong, and I hope you guys feel the same. It's been a wonderful hour with you, and I just want to thank you for all of your insight and advice for us. And just to echo what you said at the beginning, I think we all kind of deserve a little pat on the back for how hard we're all working, and with all these different roles that we take on. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. I really enjoyed it.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we will send you some follow-ups. Feel free to still leave your email, and we'll make sure that you get your tips and know where to find Amy if you'd like to talk more to her. Bye-bye.
Bye.